Hello, all. Welcome to episode number 17 of the Apostate Alliance. I first want to start out by saying I want to thank Geo Sam. Now, the starting soon screen that we've been using the last few weeks, that's from the one that Nakasuchi uses during his streams. And that's the reason for that. It gives you a chance to go live and give people a chance to get over here before you start the broadcast. Now, Geo Sam has made a Apostate Alliance placard or card or whatever you want to call it, and then Nakasuchi's going to put at the bottom of that starting soon, and we'll soon have our own screen. Not that it's not perfectly fine to be looking at Nakasuchi's image before the show starts, but we'll have our own one here hopefully by next week. I also want to mention that much like I've been doing this past week when I've been in streams, you're going to see my avatar. I won't be on camera because I've been ill. My doctor believes I have the COVID. I haven't been able to get tested yet, but I seem to have the mild version of it. But been staying away from the family and what have you. And we are joined today, as always, by my co-host, Rahman, Faye the Most Gracious. And our guest this week is Eve the Apple, as she's known on Twitter. And she is also an ex-Muslim. But before we get to the interview, as we usually do, I'd like to talk about a few stories. And everything we talk about here, I usually get it from Twitter, and I will put the tweets in the video description. And so that you can go check them out yourself, check the stories out yourself. I'm also going to be putting a video link in the video description that Faye tweeted out about earlier. Heathen Sassy made a wonderful video yesterday talking about this person on Twitter that has been harassing Faye and other people, essentially doxing, people and saying horrible things to them, in an argument with one person and then bringing their spouses into it. And it's quite a horrible thing. And highly recommend you go check the video out. But that's the first thing I wanted to mention. I'm loath to even mention this person, and give them any PR or whatever, but this person's gone over the line and Ridvan Adamar, apostate. I forget what the second word.
Apostate prophet.
Yeah, apostate prophet. Yes, thank you so much, Faye. Because I'm on mobile looking at it. Of course, it cuts the name off halfway through. He tweeted out about this, and this gentleman, as he's known on, and I use the word gentleman very loosely, as he's known on Twitter, Muhammad Hijab. He has been posting. I'm not going to read any of them, but he's been posting pictures of these people he's in an argument with on Twitter, pictures of their spouses and saying horrible, sexually harassing things, horrible, threatening things. And this is something that my friend Faye has been going through ever since I met her and long before I met her. And so I just want to throw it over to Faye for a moment to make her comment on this.
I mean, I've spoken about this at length on my channel, and I try to inject some humor into it every now and then. But the last few videos where I have talked about this person who's called, I'm gonna say his name because I think that without naming them, there is no, there's no gravity to what we're saying. We're just talking about an unnamed person. So his name is Muhammad Hijab, and he's quite a prominent Muslim preacher / figure here in the UK, and he's kind of just sort of gone off the rails. And while I do like to, inject some humor into mocking these people, just taking the piss, he has been saying some really horrible things. He's encouraged Apostate Prophet or Ridvan Ayadamir to kill himself. He's come at me, but there's very little things that you can shame me for because I basically have no shame. He enjoys my haircut. That was the best he could come up with. But yeah, I don't know what to do with him. I don't know how to stop him because I don't think he's technically committed a crime of any kind, but he's definitely gone off the rails. And even his staunch supporters are beginning to speak out against him because they can see he's not.
Well, and I got to tell you, I'm so proud of that fact too. I mean, I'm proud of those people because, as I've mentioned many times, most all of my ex-Muslim friends that I've met through social media, they're the first ones to jump out there and say, "Hey, don't be bigoted to Muslims. Okay, that's not what we're about. We're going after ideas. Don't hate on Muslims. Don't be bigoted towards Muslims." And now that this has come out and Muhammad Hijab has been acting the way he has, there's been many Muslims going into his tweets and telling him that this is not representative of their religion and to stop doing these horrible things. And that just reinforces the idea in my head that the majority of Muslims in the world are just people living their lives like the rest of us, and we don't agree with their religious beliefs, but they're still good people, Mm-hmm. I'm so glad that it's a very small percentage of people in the Muslim world that buy into Muhammad Hijab's hatefulness. The other thing I want to talk about, Mar Jane tweeted something. My thanks to them for this, which kind of blew my mind a little bit. But there are many countries in the world where you can be put to death for being an atheist, for being an apostate. Mm-hmm. And Mauritania is one. That's in Africa. Yemen, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, the Maldives, mm-hmm. Qatar, Afghanistan, Iran, Malaysia, Brunei. Now, that's nearly 10 countries that simply for not believing in God, they can execute you. That just boggles my mind in 2020, that this can happen. Faye, do you have anything you want to add about that?
I mean, not really. This was something that I was aware of for a very long time, so it's not really that surprising.
Yeah, not news to you for sure. No. Also, I did want to mention too, Ibrahim S. Amin on Twitter. He tweeted out about the violence going on in Bengaluru, in India. That the government is cracking down on people over there, and I will link this in the video description so you can go check out that story for yourselves. Also, the UFA, they tweeted about there's this woman. She was appealing folks for help creating child-friendly atheist content, and she's taking a lot of heat for from hateful people that don't want her to get this message out. But the thing is like she has this mission of coming up with friendly atheist content for children, because when she was 16, she was threatened, for not believing in God, and she's had children come to her and say that they feel threatened. I mean, just imagine if you lived in one of the countries I mentioned a moment ago, where if you don't believe, then you can be put to death, and all of a sudden you start having feelings of, wow, I can't believe in this anymore. That, especially for a child, that could be very, very scary situation. And again, I'll put all this in the video description so that you can look at it for yourselves. But is there anything you wanted to add to that, Faye?
No, I would just say support it as much as you can. I think that pushback with these kinds of things is kind of expected, but as long as there is more support than pushback, it will come to fruition. So support it as much as you can. That's all I can really say.
All right, great. So again, we're joined today by ex-Muslim Eve the Apple. I am going to throw it over to my co-host and let the two of them have a chat and learn about Eve's journey out of Islam. And thank you so much, everybody, for showing up. I see Clockwork Rex is here, Will Kincaid. I saw Digital Hammurabi here earlier, Dr. Josh. And thank you all for showing up. And take it away, Faye.
All right. Welcome, Eve. Before I dive into the interview, you've stated that you're a little nervous, and I just want to reassure you, you shouldn't be. It's just going to be me and you talking. So before we dive into the interview, I do want to ask you, with the quarantine and with COVID, how are you doing? How are you coping? How have things been since, I don't know, like March now?
Yes, things are really difficult. I mean, sometimes they do get easier, but this whole week, I mean, I don't even know if it's this whole week or the last 3 months. I couldn't keep track. I try to vary myself with work and volunteering at the local hospital, but it's difficult, but I try to get by. Thank you.
And which country are you based in?
Kenya.
And I just want to make sure, just for safeguarding, is it safe for you to be talking about stuff like this when you're in Kenya?
Well, yes and no. I mean, it's a Christian majority country, but Muslims are, yeah, there are a lot of Muslims still, and I'd say I'd say I'm not really in danger, though I did get assaulted, but that was my family, so it's a different,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't want to dig into that if that's too much. But you are, like, you've been following me for a while, and I've kept up with some of your posts, and I'm really glad that you're here today and we have a chance to talk.
Yeah,
Um,
me too.
okay, good.
Sorry,
Um,
sorry.
no, it's it's fine. So please tell us, how were you raised? How were you brought up? Were you born into a Muslim family? Did you convert into Islam? Or what is the climate of your childhood?
Well, I'm actually a Somali, so I
Mm,
was born into a Muslim country. I mean, to Muslim parents, and I grew up very extremely religious. In my family, at the time when I was really young, people
mm,
were not really into the religion as much. And I went to madrasa. And I also went to, well, we call it Duxi, and there's Tahfid. And I got really, I got really absorbed into the idea of my religion at the time. And I started wearing the jilbab and everything else. For my parents, I was basically the perfect daughter that they had. And everything was fine. I mean, as a Muslim, it was, I guess, the most happiest I've been at the time, because I believed in my head, even though I created this false sense of security for myself at the time. It was great.
Mm.
Yeah.
And tell us about your time. So you said Duksi, and Duksi is like an Islamic school where you learn Quran
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like the life of Muhammad and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
how was your time there? Because you grew up in a completely different country. So what was that like? What was the environment like?
Well, when I was young, I wasn't really aware of everything. I'd
Mm,
say that I am aware of at the moment. Things that make me uncomfortable now. At the time, I thought it was more normal looking. And but growing up, I had a really strong sense of justice. And I think one of the things that really drove me was, as a girl, the things that whenever something or something related to women happened, I felt really wounded by it, or I got really into it completely. And I'd look
mm,
it up, I'd go back to the books and I'd go back to the sheikhs and I'd ask them questions and things like that. And the answers made me uncomfortable. The answers made me want to shrink myself or make myself smaller, because it was never like I was never really looked at as a human being or as an equal or as anybody that I was never really looked at something I was comfortable with.
Can you give
Yeah,
us an
I don't know.
example?
Yes, I think I can give you an example. I think one time I remembered I said I wanted to become a doctor. At the time, my parents loved the idea, and
Mm,
I was just saying, I mean, I was not really committed to the idea because I was a kid anyway. But that's what I said. And my dad said that, well, it's fine if you want to be a doctor, and I'm really proud that you want to be a doctor, but you have to make sure that even though you're a doctor, you remain very domestic and you learn how to cook and you learn how to clean and things like that.
right.
Um, yeah, I don't know. It's not really a big deal or a huge anything, but it just really made me. I don't know. It just really made me feel bad, I guess.
In what way did you feel bad though? That you had to prioritize being
Yeah.
essentially a woman, or in quotation marks, a woman before you could prioritize being a person.
Well, well, I'd compare it to if my brother said something, because I have an older brother, and
Mm,
whenever he said something, it was nobody said anything after it, or nobody found a reason to tell him more, or nobody nobody basically told him anything else. But the moment I said something, or I spoke about something that I'm passionate about, which was also literature or something like that, people just found a way to, contribute to my own passions or ideologies or everything. And nobody just let me be. People found it. I felt like they were entitled to say something about everything that I wanted, and I
mhm.
found that very uncomfortable.
So, as a young child, you wanted to grow up and do doctoring and things like that. Did that ever come in conflict later down the line, or is that still something that you're pursuing?
Well, I'm actually a nursing student at the moment, and
Okay,
yeah, I mean, I'm hoping to delve more into medicine in the future.
that's great. That's good to hear.
I think.
That you continued to follow that, even though it was somewhat diminished by certain members of your family, and they felt
Yeah,
entitled to say what you should prioritize and what you shouldn't.
yeah.
Um, but anyway, continuing. So that was the sort of lay of your childhood, that you grew up in a Muslim family, you went to Islamic school, you went to madrasa, you went to duksi. And what was the first thing that made you curious about either becoming more religious or starting on the path of like being curious about religion?
I never really got. I mean, I when I was in primary school, yeah,
Mm,
uh, yeah, when I was in primary school, I was a very competitive kid, and
mm,
education meant so much to me, and I'd go out of my way to always, study and do things like that. But even though I got good grades and everything, I felt like people didn't respect me enough. And
mm,
then I got into high school and I'm growing up and people are noticing that I'm growing up, I'm a girl and everything. And I felt like for me to be respected, I needed to get more into religion. And the minute I did that, the very minute I did that, everybody just started, giving me this adoration. I don't even know where it got from. And I was right. I mean, I knew that if I started getting more religious, people would respect me. I was right. I guess, yeah.
And so how did you become, like, what changed for you? How did you become more religious?
After I finished primary school and I was starting high school, I
Mm,
started reading more. I mean, I did read when I was growing up, but I never really delved more into it. I never really gave it as much thought. It was just I read the Quran and everything, and then I left it off. But at the time I started reading, I got more into the translation and everything. I started praying more. I started fasting on Mondays and Thursdays. Started visiting, you know, there is the thing about visiting 40 people around your area and something. I started doing charities and things like that.
mhm.
So, yeah.
And was there something specifically that interested you about Islam, or was it just like something that you were doing so that people would, you would be seen, whereas before no one seemed to acknowledge you?
Uh, I mean, yeah, I'd used Islam in a way that helped me from time to time. At first, I used it and I thought, like, the only way for people to respect me is I was a better person. And for
Hmm.
me to be a better person, I need to be a better Muslim. So I did that.
Right.
And yeah, and then, for example, I'd go to school and somebody would say something and I'd get angry or something like that. And I'd go back and I'd be like, okay, what will the Prophet do? And then I'd read back and be like, okay, I'll do what he used to do. So it just made me, I was growing up still, so I didn't really know much. And basically, Islam tells you how to do everything. So
Hmm.
it's yeah, you can rely on it. It can help you if you don't want to think for yourself,
So it kind of
And
gave you like a template for living.
yeah,
Hmm. That's interesting. So you said growing up, you also had a very strong sense of justice.
yeah.
Did that come into conflict the further you looked into Islam?
I think yes, especially when it comes to women and
Mhm.
animals.
Can you give us some examples of how it conflicted?
Well, for example, it always rubbed me off the wrong way that the prophet's marriages always rubbed me off the wrong way. How he got
Mhm.
married to 11 wives, and you know the wives were never really showcased in the same way the prophet was,
Mhm.
or yeah, they never got the same glory as he did. Like if people will just say, "Oh, but look, Khadija proposed to him," or they'll
Mhm.
say Aisha was his favorite, things like that. But it was never really enough. I never really saw it.
Yeah,
So for me, yeah,
I think the
mhm,
majority of his wives aren't really that well
yeah,
known. Whereas,
yeah,
like, the popular ones like Khadija and Aisha, maybe Hafsa, but aside from those three,
and Sumaya too.
yeah, even that, like, Sumaya is one that I very quickly forget.
Hmm.
Um, I it doesn't, like, he has 11 wives, but we only really know about 3 or 4 of them,
Yeah, I get you.
and it's kind of disturbing
Yeah.
how he acquired some of these wives as well, and that's something that is taught to children, um,
Hmm.
which I think no one talks about. Um, but you're right, and so you have this strong sense of justice, and then it comes in conflict with
Hmm.
Islam. How do you rationalize that?
Well, at first, the first few years, obviously, growing up,
Mm,
I started rebelling against the idea. I thought people might be lying to me and that they weren't giving the Prophet enough credit,
mm,
and there was something off. So I started delving more into the hadiths and the seerahs and everything. And the more I read about it, the more depressed I got. So I figured, yeah, I'm sorry. Did you want to say something?
no, I just wanted to ask, in what way did it depress you?
I mean, I went into reading more because I thought surely that maybe they misrepresented the women in the Prophet's life or women in general during that time. But then
Mm,
the more I got into it, I realized maybe like the root of the cause might be him.
that must have been quite disturbing for you to think. I think she's a little indisposed at the moment. Um, how's the chat going? And feel free to leave any questions you have for Eve so that we can ask her at the end of the show. But sorry, you were
We
saying.
lost her there for a minute.
Sorry,
Oh, no,
Oh, there we
there's
go.
someone who was talking to me, so I muted it. Sorry.
it's okay. So you were saying that you discovered that perhaps Muhammad was the source for the underrepresentation of his wives, right?
Yes.
And how did that make you feel realizing that?
I felt maybe it was my place to feel lower than men. As uncomfortable as that was for me, I figured maybe if I made myself or I looked down on myself or I put myself down purposely, then it will be better. Or maybe I'd see it the way he was seeing it, because everybody was just going around about how he was the perfect person. So that worked out, I guess.
Did it work out? It sounds like it didn't
No,
work out.
it did.
So go into that a little more. How did you put yourself in a mindset where you actually saw yourself as lower than men?
Well, I talked, I don't know if I've mentioned that I started wearing the jilbab and everything and the niqab.
Mm,
But I had asthma and where we lived was pretty hot, so I left out the niqab, but I wear the jilbab. I always
mm,
look down and I addressed men with a lot of respect. I hated it, by the way, but I still did it. And it wasn't even, it's not like I'm not saying I shouldn't respect men. It's just the people now that I look back on it, they're not even worthy of that kind of respect. It's usually the
mm,
sheikhs who will spit when you're walking around, that kind of thing. Just kind of disgusted me. But
yeah.
yeah, so I did things like that, and you know, doing things that I never liked, like for example, cooking for people. I don't know, things that made me uncomfortable, but I felt like if I did
Yeah.
them, then, yeah,
I mean, I think that's just a metaphor for Islam, is that you hate everything, but you're just doing it because you have to. um, it is a metaphor for Islam because I can remember so many things that I didn't particularly enjoy doing, but I just
uh-huh.
didn't because it was recommended or you're supposed to do it. But how did that mindset of you now actively looking down on yourself and making room for men in
Mhm,
general above you,
mhm.
how did that affect you on like a mental level, on a physical level?
It,
Because that doesn't sound like a very healthy mindset to be in.
it was not. It was really not, and I hated every moment of it. It made me really sad, but I
Mm-hmm.
kept on doing it at the time. Uh, sorry. So after a while, after I don't even remember the exact time, but all of this was happening in high school, and I got into a boarding school, and it was easier that way because there weren't really a lot of men around, and the men around there were, Christian guys, Christian teachers, and things like that, and I didn't really think much of it.
Mm-hmm.
After a while, I mean, I really liked reading a lot, and I'd read about things. I don't know, I just read about books and things like that, and I just become more intrigued. With time, my me looking down on myself just kind of gradually faded because
Mm-hmm.
of how I started seeing things from other people's perspective through reading people's experiences. So yeah, I can't say, I can't pinpoint the exact time I stopped doing it.
Mm. And what kind of books were you reading? Was it mainly nonfiction? Was it fiction? Um, what kind of books are we talking about?
I mean, I started reading classics at first when I was really young. I used to listen to classics.
Like
Uh,
English
and,
classics?
yeah, English classics. And then
Mm-hmm.
after a while, I delved more into science books, especially the Stephen Hawking. By the way, I
Mm-hmm.
I was really young and I just really used to listen uh, to his lectures, and this spot that I used to play in when I was really young, and
Mm-hmm.
he's sitting on the wheelchair, and then he's like, "There is no God," and now that I think about it, it's just really so humorous. Um, so I delved more into that, and why did I forget his name? Um, there's also this other scientist that I used to listen to a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wait. Was it? I don't know exactly sure if I can call him a scientist, but William Lane Craig. Yeah, I believe
Okay.
that's, yeah. So
Oh,
then there was that, and then I got into fiction from time to time. I read about Percy Jackson and things like that, and I also read about a lot of rom-coms. So I don't know.
that's fair enough. But the question that I was kind of leading to was, did you ever feel like when you read fiction, especially when you read a classic that featured women in them, so like Jane Austen and
Yeah.
fiction like that, did you ever feel like you could really relate to their struggles, even though they're set in a completely different time?
Oh yeah, completely. Especially Jane Austen books. I mean, I don't know if I have
Yeah,
to mention that, but
because
yeah,
it's all based around women and getting married, and
yeah,
that is just the perfect painting for most Muslim women's lives. Um, but
I
that's what
remember.
I found is that
Yeah,
whenever I delved, sorry, go on.
mhm. No. Sorry, finish up. I interrupted you.
Sure. So whenever I delved into fiction, especially if it was historical fiction, I just found that I related more to the characters than I do if I read fiction that was set in a more modern time, because I just could not
Yeah,
understand the way that people were living now, but I completely understood how people were living like centuries ago.
yeah. Okay. I remember reading this book. I think I forgot the author, but it's called The Bride Sale, and
Mm,
it was yeah. I don't know if you read it, but I remember reading The Bride Sale, and I was just thinking back, and I was like, well, this makes a lot of sense. This could easily happen to me. But then
mm,
sometimes I ask myself, like, how is it possible this could possibly happen to me? Because, the setting is different. I mean, people are selling their wives and things like that. And I don't know, but I understand what you mean. Like,
mm.
yeah, it's very confusing that you put yourself in the past. But yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever feel like, because one of the reasons why, and I don't read very much anymore, but I used to read a lot when I was a Muslim, and one of the
Mhm.
reasons why was because it was very easy. It was a very easy route into escapism, and
Mhm.
I think that's why I don't really read very much anymore, is because I don't feel the need to escape the life that I'm living. Um, did you ever feel that? Like you said, you read a lot of like Percy Jackson, a lot of teen fiction,
Mhm.
which is like it's fun reading. There's nothing really to gain from it, but
Yeah.
it's good reading, you know. Did you ever feel like that? Did you ever envy the characters in certain stories because they, for some reason, had more freedom than you did?
Oh my God. Forget like the characters. I think I envy people in real life.
Mm,
Like people weren't different. Yeah, yeah, seriously. Because I remember when I first read Infidel, by Ayan Hirsi, and I kept going back every time when I reached the part where she flies and she goes to, I don't know which country she went to first, and I was like,
I
well, I
think she
wish I
went
could just
to
go.
the
It was
Netherlands first.
the
I think.
Netherlands, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
she went to the Netherlands first, and I was like, well, that sounds really easy. I wish I could just go, or I wish, yeah. Yeah, so I'd finish the book, and I'd get back to the point where she was traveling to the Netherlands.
mm,
Yeah, and so I still do feel that way. The need to escape is very much within me.
yeah.
Yeah.
And do you currently live with family, or where are you now?
Actually, yeah, I still live with family.
That must be really difficult, especially if you're trapped at home because of
Yeah.
COVID. Um,
It-
can you tell us a little bit about that? How is it living with family? You know, hiding the fact that hiding your apostasy and anything else. I'm not entirely sure what your sexuality is, but um, sorry, go on.
Sorry. So I can't say my apostasy is hidden per se, because
Mm,
I did come out accidentally though, and yeah, I got assaulted by my family right after, and then I started, kind of like I made it out. I made up a story about just okay. So my parents know I'm struggling with some issues, and so I made it appear like it was some sort of episode, and
right.
that yeah. So I don't really know how to put my apostasies. It's a bit confusing because I'm kind of out there and I'm not at the same time.
Right. Well, tell us
Yeah.
about your apostasy. What made you leave Islam? How did you leave? This is one of the reasons why I don't really jump into that question is because it's kind of a boring question, but I guess for context, it's important.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I get that. Sorry.
So what were the things that led up to it and what happened?
I think after a while, I used to pray a lot. I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, I used to pray a lot. I used to fast and everything. But then after a while, it just became very tiresome. And I just be like, once in a while, like the first time I missed a prayer, I remember I had a breakdown. I cried and everything. And then I
Mhm.
followed it up and I went more intensely than I was before. I was praying every time and I was always mentioning God and everything. And I had this I forgot what it's called, this thing where you just used to supplicate after prayer.
Mm.
And it got more,
You would do tasbih.
jilbabs. Yeah, tasbih. And
Mm.
then I bought more jilbabs and everything. But after a while, then I just stopped. Or I
Just
started like,
abruptly.
how they say about taraq salat. So I started kind of became like that. And
Mm.
how many you kind of you become this person who hates themselves because of how they're described in the Quran, especially. But I started not caring about it after a while. But before then, oh my God, I really hated myself, and I couldn't bring myself to pray all the time. So there was a time I stopped completely, and then I just went on my way. I said, maybe in the future I will come back, and I just like my dad. Yeah, I actually said that.
Hey, so I'd like to jump in and ask a question because this part of everybody's story always fascinates me. Um, so, is there? Was it just like a process, or was there one thing you could point to that planted that seed in your head of starting to doubt the religion or doubt the idea that there is a God? Is there one thing you can point to that started that process in your head, or was it just something that slowly, gradually happened over time?
I mean, I think the fact that when people growing up as a Muslim, people always tell you what to do or how you're supposed to do things. So you have this way of living, and
Mhm.
there is nothing you can do about it because it's not even your way, but people will tell you this is how it's supposed to be, this is how you live. But then personally, I liked joking about things. I mean, I didn't like for any restrictions to be there. I didn't care whether there was God or anything. I just liked making fun of everything. So whenever there was restrictions, it would always just kind of make me feel bad. I'd just be like, oh man, I wish I could. And then I just watch. I start watching people go about their way or people talk shit about God and things like that. It make me. I don't know. There was just this certain part of me that came alive after that.
Mm.
And yeah, knowing that no topic is, um, what's the
No
word I'm
topic
looking
is
for?
safe from
Yeah,
mockery.
yeah,
Mm.
that kind of gave me this liberation, and I loved it. So I can't say there was an exact point, but there are so many things that would make me doubt. But I think Islam was just beaten into me. Sometimes it was,
Did you ever
sometimes I
feel
chose it. I think.
did you ever feel afraid to like just have a laugh and have a joke about Islam? Because it's like a big deal to make a joke about
Yeah,
Islam as a Muslim.
yeah, it's. I mean,
It's basically disbelief if you make jokes about anything in Islam. Um, so
yeah.
was there ever that fear?
Actually, that's the problem that I have with it is there was always fear about the
Mm.
most random things. Like seriously, for example, Oreos or things like that. There was always fear about something or
You said
lighting.
Oreos?
Yeah, Oreos. I don't know if you heard they're actually not good to consume if you're a Muslim, and they're
Because
actually
they're
haram.
haram or something, because they've got gelatin or something like that.
Yeah, and there's that. There was also the candle. Apparently, I'm not supposed to lit a candle on my birthday. Um,
Mm.
there were just so many unnecessary things. Like you'd go out of your way and you'd listen to so many Islamic lectures. People would go around, and you know how those sheikhs are. They come around and they try to be, kind of cool about it. They go on. They'll be like, "Oh, I know there was nothing that can happen to you," but that they just usually it's useless points mostly. But you
It's
know,
just cringe, isn't it? like the way that some preachers will try to like make Islam fun when there's
yeah,
nothing fun about it. um
that is true.
It's really pathetic, actually, that there are
Yeah.
preachers out there who'll try to make Islam fun when Islam is just dead serious all of the time.
Yeah, and then you will sit there and you listen to lectures about everything, like the smallest invention, or somebody's excited about a bicycle or something. But then you have to, when the other kids are playing outside, your mother will sit you down, make you listen to a lecture until they prove it's haram or halal. Then you can do it. If not, you have to be the
Mhm.
first person to talk bad about that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awful. But anyway, so you said you came out accidentally.
Yeah.
So how did that happen?
Well, so I didn't even know I was an atheist until I talked to you. It was on Ramadan, and I actually was in a good mood and everything. I went out and I wanted to help people because we were preparing food, and I don't usually do that. So that, yeah, so I go out and my mom asks me to go pray, and I'm like, I don't want to. So I say I don't want to, and she's like, what do you mean you don't want to? Why don't you go pray? And then I was like, I don't think I actually want to be a Muslim anymore.
Oh
So
no.
one thing leads to another, and it was a pretty bloody day, honestly, and
Mm.
yeah, pretty
I mean,
shitty.
did you know how heavy the words you were saying were?
It's like I knew when I did it at the same time. You know,
Mhm.
when you're just saying that to somebody who's not close to you, you're just like, okay, maybe now I can think about repercussions. But if you're talking to it to somebody who's close to you, then you kind of don't care,
Mhm.
because you're like, okay, obviously blood has to come first. But then I
Yeah.
guess that was the case.
And how, like, I know exactly what you're saying, because you expect your mother to be like maybe she'll be angry, but you don't
Yeah.
expect her to break your physical integrity. I don't know how else to say it.
Oh,
It's people that
I
you
didn't expect her
trust.
to be so cruel to me. I that honestly, I don't know. I'm still just really shocked sometimes, and just we're still wounded about it. I never expected her to be that cruel to me.
But
It was just,
how did that affect you? Like, how did that make you feel?
oh, it just really made me feel horrible. I mean, it wasn't even the physical aspect, it was more of the emotional aspect,
Mhm.
because I was also I was actually in a lot of doubt at the time, and I was really confused because I was, stringing more as an atheist and more towards atheism, and I wanted someone to guide me or someone to talk to me or something like that, even though I mean, the environment seemed kind of hostile. I still expected it, but what I got in return was not at all what I expected. Not even, as a, I don't know, I don't really know how to explain it, but it was just really horrible.
Yeah. I mean, did you have any expectations? Like, what did you expect?
I think maybe like verbally, maybe like we disagree and we'll storm out and things like that, but the extent it kind of got, I don't know. It's just,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry that you experienced that. We obviously don't have to go into more than that than you want to, and it doesn't seem like you do, so we won't. Um, but I do want to
If I
ask
could interject real
how.
quick,
Yeah, sure.
it reminds me of a reply that I saw on the fellow we talked about earlier today, Muhammad Hijab. There was a Muslim that had responded to one of his horrible tweets that this, I believe it was a woman, was saying how her sister had come out as an apostate, and with great pride, it seemed, she was
yeah.
posting that, yes, 6 years ago when she came out as an apostate, we shunned her. None of my children have seen her since then, and with great pride, she was saying this, that she had just jettisoned this person that was her blood from her life simply because they came out as an apostate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw that actually. I
Mhm.
felt really sad after that, because that person is basically not even considered a human being after that. And
Mhm.
there is the shunning after I took myself to the hospital, because I was really traumatized, and physically after that, I mean, and emotionally I was really traumatized. So I took myself to the
Mhm.
hospital because I was really scared that day that they're going to smother me in my sleep. So I went to the hospital, and I remember nobody came to see me. I didn't eat all day. I was still fasting, and I just stayed there until they made me apologize to them. And I had no option because I felt so alone, so, you know,
Mhm.
and I felt like, that's the only thing I had. So I still apologized, and they came in the next day to see me. And it wasn't even like in good graces or anything. They just came, they brought me food, and then they left.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And how old were you when this happened?
Actually, it was this year. It was this Ramadan.
Oh, so this is fresh. This was a couple of
Yeah.
months ago.
Yeah.
How are you talking about this now?
Well, I had therapy before. I mean,
Mhm.
I always had a therapist, and then because I was really afraid after what happened, I was just extremely cautious after. I got therapy exclusively for, uh, away from Islam and everything.
Mhm.
So it's not better, but, I try.
You're managing. Um, do you still have those fears though, if you were to, because it must be really, really difficult. Like you still live with family, they still have expectations for you.
Yeah.
You obviously want one thing for your life, and they clearly want something else. Does it
Mhm.
still scare you, like the day where, whether or not you choose to do it, but hypothetically, if you chose to come out and be like, I'm not a Muslim anymore, this is what I want from my life. Um, is there still that fear of everyone is just going to leave you?
I mean, I think part of the reason why I still stay is because I want to, gravitate towards the people that will accept me for who I am at the moment, you know.
Mhm.
So, like, I'm still studying and everything, and I just love what I'm doing, and I love my siblings and everything. But you have to kind of sometimes, distance yourself from things, especially um, if you're going to put like any any disturbance towards your emotional or physical being. And even though it's difficult sometimes, because I keep thinking, like, I know that the moment I become more open about this, that's it. There is no family there. That's just the end of it. But there's also this part of me that says, like, I don't feel like I'm truly living sometimes, because
Mhm.
there's just this shrouded guilt they have me wearing. I mean, at least for them, and I don't want to. So I
Mhm.
think losing my family for my individuality is worth it.
Yeah, and it's a tough choice to make, whether
Yeah.
or not you get to be yourself or you get to be part of your family.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a choice that anyone has to make, but unfortunately, it's the reality for a lot of people who apostate, not just from Islam, but I think from quite a few different
Yeah.
subsects of religions, but especially from Islam. I do want to reiterate because it's a pretty widespread problem.
Yeah.
Um, what are your hopes and dreams? Since like this is very fresh for you, what do you want out of the future? Like I think we've talked about a lot of heavy, depressing stuff.
Yeah.
Do you want to continue with your medicine career?
Mhm.
Um, what do you want out of your future?
Uh, sorry. I hope I don't bore you with my, know, no, but I'm really very passionate about medicine in general, and I just feel extremely lucky that I'm
Hmm.
able to do something like that. And in the future, after I'm done with nursing school, I was actually hoping to go back to medical school after a few years of practice and become a surgeon and just go on like that, because medicine means the world to me. It's
Oh,
it's
you want to become
everything.
a surgeon?
Yeah.
Oh, you're brave.
Well, thank you.
um, but do you want to stay in Kenya? Do you want to move somewhere? What is the dream? I feel like since you keep fixating on that one part in Heretic where Ayan Hirsi Ali like flies to a different country,
Yeah.
I have a feeling you want to leave Kenya. Um,
I mean, I'm a usually comfortable person, and I wouldn't have a problem staying here. But I feel like I can't be who I want to be if I continue on staying here.
mhm.
So yeah, I definitely plan on leaving.
Mm. And I wish you the best. Honestly, I'm still quite shocked that this only happened like what 3 or 4 months ago. So you're quite
Yeah,
a very new apostate,
yeah.
and you're comfortable talking about it. That's actually quite commendable. But I couldn't talk about it for a whole year. I was too busy feeling bad for myself. It was a pity party that lasted a year. You know.
I can understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm glad that you seem to be doing at least marginally okay,
Thank
mentally.
you. Thank
And I'm honestly quite proud that you can sit here and talk about all of this with just frankness and without emotion, because I think everyone knows by now that I'm just crying all over the place, all over the internet, because it's
Oh,
really emotional.
uh, well, thank you so much. Coming from you, that means a lot. You know, I try. I try to put myself in the best position that I possibly can.
Mhm,
And it's not strength to go through trauma. It never is really strength. It's never really even necessary. But
mhm.
you try your best with the cards that you're dealt with, and I feel like people handle things differently, and you know, yeah, just trying to go along with it.
It's a very good mindset to have. I'm quite happy with that actually. John, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, given some of the things you shared with us, I'm just very amazed at your demeanor and your attitude. You seem
Mhm.
very upbeat. You seem like a very positive person, and that's just a testimony to how strong you are. Um, and I just want a few comments from the chat. Uh, Clockwork Rex, he commiserates with you and says that he totally understands feeling trapped like that by religion. And there was a fella that had a question a little ways back.
Yeah, the
Iron
Iron
Chariot here.
Chariot. Yeah.
Yeah, right here it is. He wanted to know, Eve, have you ever come across Muslims that are anti-science? You know, like in these days of the coronavirus, and how do you deal with these attitudes? You know, when people are, you're going to become a surgeon, and do you encounter Muslims that are completely anti-science?
Oh, thank you. I'm really flattered that you think of me as a strong person and everything. Uh, anyway, about the people who are anti-science, it's not only a Muslim problem. There's so many Christians. As I mentioned, Kenya is a Christian majority country, and I've met people like that. And the problem is I can't really pinpoint exactly how to educate those people, but I try to deal with it from their point of view, because I remember when I was my first year as a nursing student, I met a lot of people, and at first, people in medical school, they don't really teach you how to talk to people. They teach you the factual side of things, and then the social side is not really touched as much. So through my experiences with patients, sometimes not as great as I wish to handle, I've tried my best to empathize with people individually and their backgrounds. So I'd say first I'd talk to them and make it understand, or make it more personal for them. Usually when you make things more personal for people who have ideologies or who come from certain backgrounds, they become more involved with the idea. If, for example, you tell somebody like, especially as Muslim, you just tell them, trust your God and tie your camel. Just
Mhm.
wash your hands, wear the masks, and still pray to your God and go on your way.
You have to
Rather than
spin the
just telling them,
narrative.
yes, yeah, it's easier that way, because now that way they won't have to, put their health on the line to
Mhm.
prove a point. Yeah. So I don't know if that helps it, but
And I think like
so
working in a medical field, you have to do that because you do care about people's health.
yeah, that's what's important at the end of the day. It's you
Mm.
want to you want to preserve health, and I find that something really beautiful, and I feel like we should all work towards it. So it's necessary.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much you can get out of the rest of life if your health isn't good,
That's
and
true.
that's very good the way you handle that. I mean, you don't want to insult someone,
Yeah.
because then you're not going to get anywhere with them. So you just give them the information and let them do with it what they will, and if they want to still pray to God, then if that makes them feel better, then that's a good thing. Actually, it's of course us folks that go against like the more extreme ends of religion. It's when there's people out there that want to pray to their God that certain people are killed, like gay people and apostates and what have you. But if somebody wants to pray to their God and it makes them feel better, for their own health, or I've told many people that believe in God, and some of them, I think their intention was to kind of a shot when they say they're going to pray for you. But I always tell them, please do, because I could certainly be wrong. You might be helping me by praying for me. So if anybody has any more questions in the audience for Eve, please put them. We'll give you a couple minutes to do that. But I think we're going to start winding things down here. Faye, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just a little dazed. I haven't been feeling the best over the last couple of days either. So, yeah.
I just I want to thank you so much for being here, Eve. Very, very, very great interview. You shared some pretty hard to share stuff. I always love hearing Faye talk to her fellow Muslim apostates. I don't know if I did I send you a link to our Discord channel?
I don't believe you have.
Yeah, I'll get you a link out to the server, because there's a lot of other ex-Muslims that have joined the server, as well as apostates of other religions. And I don't know if you've ever been on Discord, but you can go in there and go into voice channels and talk to people and discuss. Okay, yeah. Just to give the audience a little heads up here about a couple things coming up. So today, of course, as you see, we talked with Eve. Next week, we're going to be talking to ex-Muslims of Norway. And on the 30th, we're going to be talking to Ali Ahmed. And I just started scheduling some folks into September. On the 6th of September, we're going to talk to former Christian Jeff Pasek. He's known as Jeff Spatchcock on YouTube and on the Twitter. And then on the 13th, we have our reschedule. We missed him this month. Jimmy Bangesh, Faye's honorary husband. He's going to be with us on September the 13th, and he's an ex-Muslim as well. And then on the 20th, we have like about a 90% commitment from this person. They said that they had to get a little closer to the date to be 100% sure. But Cheyenne Ali, a new friend that I met on Twitter that just recently followed me, and I followed them back. Also, next Thursday, next Thursday, I did a stream last month on the third Thursday of the month that was the Women of Atheism Roundtable, and I had done it, the premiere of it, as another episode of John Learns New Stuff, but we're going to make that its own feature. So next Thursday, we're going to do the Women of Atheism Roundtable. Sassy Heathen will be there, Jenna Belk, Saf.com, very good friend of Faye's, Dr. Misha Griffith, and Topic Thunder, another friend of Faye's. And then the month after that, we're going to have Faye back, and I would imagine Saf will be back for that one too, because we're going to. So. Yeah. I mean, we're going to let Faye put together an entire panel of women that are Muslim apostates. So it'll be ex-Muslim atheists for the Women of Atheism Roundtable in October. And we want to thank everybody who came by to watch the show today. Thank you to Eve for joining us.
Thank you.
And, one thing we would like you to do if you like this show, please share it with folks. We want to get these stories out to as many people as possible. I've said many times on here, that us atheists in the Western world, we can complain about how we're treated as atheists, but there's people around the world in other countries that are treated much more horribly than we are, and their lives may be in danger. As we talked about at the top of the show, there's several countries in the world where you can be killed for being an apostate. So if you like this show, if you like hearing these stories, please share it with folks. We want it to grow. We want it to get out to as many people as possible. And here at the Apostate Alliance, it's where you can be free to not believe. Thanks again, folks.